What's going on, guys? Today I'm reviewing my first 2024 NHL Mock Draft. A bunch of you have been asking for this. We just passed the halfway point of the season, so I figured this was a good time to do it. If you guys look at the standings here, obviously a bunch of the kind of same bottom teams from last year are back at the top of the best odds, up picking first overall. You got the Sharks there, the Blackhawks, the Ducks, the Blue Jackets. It's gonna be interesting to see what happens in the draft. I've actually already done a draft lottery, and as you guys can see there, the Blackhawks picking first overall again. They jumped up one spot, and then the Sharks there actually won the second pick. So just a small change, the Blackhawks picking first overall again. I feel like people would absolutely hate that. So we'll get started with the draft in that order. I'm sure if you guys are watching this like a day after I made it or whatever, the teams have probably switched slightly, but hopefully more or less the same. Now for the first overall pick here, the Blackhawks aren't going to overthink this one. They take Macklin Celebrini, the consensus first overall pick. If you guys look at all the scouting rankings here, every single one has him at number 1. It doesn't matter who you look at. I would say he was Canada's best player at the World Junior Tournament as a 17-year-old. Bedard did something similar last year, although Bedard was like absolutely dominant as a 17-year-old. Celebrini was simply just Canada's best player. So you can kind of see the difference there between generational Bedard and an elite prospect Celebrini, who's going to go first overall. Still very impressive for a 17-year-old. He's already playing in college. I'm pretty sure he did the thing where like you graduate high school early, so he's able to play at 17 years old. Has 32 points in 19 games. He's having one of the best freshman seasons ever for NCAA hockey. Again, doing that at 17 is crazy. The year before that, as a 16-year-old, he had one of the best ever USHL seasons, 86 points in 50 games there with Chicago Steel. The guy's a stud. He's a really good skater, has a great shot on him, even better playmaker, pretty much does it all for you. So again, Chicago does not overthink this pick. They take Macklin Celebrini. Now next up here, guys, number 2, San Jose Sharks are up. And I would say this is definitely where the draft opens up a little bit, but there is a consensus 3. I feel like they have a decision here between Eiserman and Demidov, and personally I have them taking Cole Eiserman. Big reason for this is I think Eiserman's probably the best scorer in the draft. If you guys haven't really looked at NHL standings recently, the Sharks are the worst scoring team in the league. They are 32nd there in goals for with 98. They're the only team below 100. And Cole Eiserman right now, if we go down to his stats here, has over a goal a game playing on the under-18 U.S. development team. So that is incredible. I'm pretty sure it's like the highest goals per game ever for a draft-eligible player on that team. I think Austin Matthews was like 0.75, maybe 0.6 a game. Eiserman's averaging over a goal a game. It's just incredible. Even on like the junior team there, you can see he's still over point per game, 21-13. Now he is committed to Boston University next year, so unless something changes, probably not going to make the immediate jump to the NHL. But again, I think the best goal scorer in this draft, if you're the Sharks, you need goal scoring. I don't know why you would pass on this guy. You've already got your future 1C in Will Smith. Why not play those two together? I look at the scouting rankings for him. It's a mix of 2 and 3s. There are actually a 4 there by Bob McKenzie, a 5 by Dauber Prospects. But again, most people have him there 2 or 3. And I think if the Sharks are at 2, I'd be very, very surprised if they pass on this guy. And now next year, guys, number 3 are the Anaheim Ducks. And I think they're going to take the other player I just mentioned. That is Ivan Demidov. Another very good goal scorer in this draft. I do think Eiserman's a little bit better. Also, too, you can't downplay the Russian factor. I think that is there. So, you know, both him and Eiserman are close. I think the kind of safer pick in that regard is Eiserman. Demidov, though, at 3 for the Ducks. I think still a very good pick. I look at his scout rankings there again. Kind of like Eiserman, it's basically 2 and 3s with a 5, 6, 7 mixed in. So I think Eiserman has that slight edge. You can see right here it says, keeps it on a string while going at full speed, uses his hands, lateral moves to his forehand to destabilize the defense. So good puck handler. Again, like I said, one of the better scorers in the draft. Might be 2 behind Eiserman. Right now he's playing the MHL, which is like, you know, the lower league of the KHL. He's got 45 points, 23 games, so he's crushing it there. Again at 17. The year before that in the MHL, again, 62 and 41. I think, you know, he looks like a legit, you know, sniping winger. I think he can actually play center even. Yeah, right wing / center. Will probably be a winger in terms of the NHL. So imagine a Ducks future first line with like him at right wing, Leo Carlson in the middle, Cutter Gauthier at left wing. I think that'd be one of the best lines in hockey. And next year, guys, we have the Columbus Blue Jackets. I think they take the first defenseman off the board. There's definitely a few different guys that could go here, but I think they'll lean towards Anton Isilayev. I think just his size for sure, 6'7", still pretty mobile at his size. You guys can see scout rankings. Because, you know, this is kind of where the draft starts to open up. I think there's the consensus 3 I just mentioned. Honestly, 4 could go anywhere. He's ranked anywhere between 2 and 13, or even 17 by Smart Scouting there. So, again, kind of your guess is as good as mine, but I do think he'll end up being in the top 5. Right here, a little scout quote for him. Won't limit himself to use his backwards mobility and reach. He'll aggressively close down his opponents, finish him along the board. Again, he's 6'7". He's going to use his size to his advantage, but still, you know, decent skater. He's actually playing in the KHL right now with men. Has 11 points there in 53 games, which for a defenseman, 17 years old, playing on like a pretty meh team, I don't think that's that bad. I think, too, like, scouts are just going to gush over the fact, you know, he's 6'7", pretty mobile, has a bit of an offensive game to him. I think could turn out to be like a very solid guy. Is he going to be, you know, Victor Hedman? Probably not. But if he ends up being like a top 4 defenseman that can play in all situations, I feel like that's a pretty good pick at number 4. And next year, guys, number 5, the Ottawa Senators, also taking a defenseman. This time, they're taking Artem Levshunov. I feel like it's kind of a toss-up between him, Saliva, and another defenseman to be the first D-man taken off the board. I feel like he's a really good pick there for the Senators. You guys can see here, he's got a right shot. They've already got Sanderson, Shabbat, both left-handed. I think, you know, the Senators definitely need defense more than forward. I think they already have like a solid top 6, some good young forwards coming up. Normally, you wouldn't want to draft based on position opposed to overall talent, but I actually do think Levshunov is probably also just best player available at this spot. So works out really well for the Senators. You look at his rankings here, anywhere from number 2 for Central Scouting all the way down to 10. Number 3 there for Bob McKenzie. So again, for the 5 spot, I think he makes a lot of sense. Currently actually playing at Michigan State in the NCAA. Has just over a point per game there. He's definitely got, you know, good offensive ability to his game. Last year in the USHL, 42 and 62. As a 16-year-old defenseman, I feel like that's pretty solid as well. So I look at him, not as big, says Salayev. Still though he's 6'2", so pretty big, offensive, not a terrible defensive game. Kind of just like your really solid all-around D-man. I think Senators fans actually be very happy with this pick. And next up at number 6, guys, we got the Buffalo Sabres, keeping this run defenseman going, taking Sam Dickinson. He was a 3rd guy in that defensive group who I think could be the first defenseman off the board, but I feel like of the 3, he's probably the weakest. Still very solid defenseman, playing on the London Knights right now. Good size there, 6'3", almost 200 pounds. You look at his scouting rankings, anywhere from 2 by McKean's Hockey down to 7. Probably has like the tightest grouping of anybody. Mostly 7s there, but no one has him outside the top 7. So might be one of the more safe picks in that grouping. I will say right now this year he's got about a point per game playing the London Knights. Being a, you know, pretty big OHL fan, the London Knights are stacked, so I think that's probably, you know, inflating his point production a little bit. Last year as a 16-year-old, he had 23 points, 62 games. I've seen him play probably 4 or 5 times down in person, and you can tell he's definitely a good defenseman, but never really takes control of the game, if you know what I mean. So I'm curious to see how he'll pan out. Again, I'm thinking probably just like a top 4 guy that can play both power play and PK. Either way, I think Buffalo already has a really solid group of young forwards. They need some help on the defense with Dahlin and Power, and I think Dickinson would do just that. And now next to you guys, number 7, the Montreal Canadiens taking Caden Lindstrom. I think he's the guy who's had like his draft stock risen the most this season. If you look at his production this year on the Medicine Hat Tigers, very solid numbers, 46 points, 32 games as a 17-year-old. Last year, even as a 16-year-old, had 42 and 61, which is a pretty good rookie season in the WHL. He's a guy, too, that can play any position for you. They can play him on the wing. They can play him at center. I think Montreal would love to have him in that future top 6, especially, too, 6'4" there. He's a big body, kind of has that prototypical power forward build. You look at his rankings, anywhere from 3 down to as low as 25. I wonder if the Hockey News, though, that one hasn't been updated recently. As I mentioned, he's kind of been like the guy who's risen the most this season with his play. So I think at this spot, you're looking for the best player available, in my mind, probably Caden Lindstrom. So Habs fans should be happy with that pick. And now next year, guys, number 8, with the Minnesota Wild taking Konsta Helenius. I think, again, looking for best player available on that team. They definitely do have a need for forward more than defense, I think. They've been lacking number 1 center since, like, I don't know, the last 6-7 years. I'm trying to think. It was the last time they had a 1C, Miku Koivu, when he was in his prime. I really can't think of anybody else. I know they've had like Ryan Hartman playing that place. Eriksson Ek's probably the closest guy they've had to a 1C, but in my mind, it's kind of more of like a high-end 2C. So Konsta Helenius here could be their future 1C. He does play center or wing. Could end up being a winger at the NHL level, but he's a solid playmaker. I think could end up being an awesome duo with Kaprizov. You look at his rankings here. He's actually the number 1 ranked European scouter by NHL Central Scouting, but in terms of like the overall rankings, he's anywhere from 4 to 11. So I think Wild getting him at 8 is very solid. He's actually currently playing in Liga, which is like the men's Finnish league. So he's playing against men. Still has 22 points, 33 games. Again, as a 17-year-old, very impressive. Now at the World Juniors, you would like to see him do a little bit more than 2 points in 7 games, but a lot of that too comes down to like utilization. Is he getting the ice time that say like Celebrini was with Canada? I'm not really too sure. So overall, I think, honestly, a solid pick here for the Minnesota Wild. Hopefully one that, like I said, really revitalizes their top 6 in the future. And now next year, guys, number 9, with the Seattle Kraken taking Zane Parekh. He actually plays for the Saginaw Spirit in the OHL, so another guy I've actually been fortunate enough to see play quite a bit. He's probably like one of the better offensive defensemen in this draft class, if not the best one. Last year as a 16-year-old, he actually set an OHL record, having 21 goals in his rookie season, 37 points total. This year, he's got 64 points in 42 games. Like, that is incredible. Now, having said that, some of the London Saginaw is quite stacked, but still, he's got, like, 20 more points than Dickinson. Again, more of an offensive guy. He's got 22 goals already. I think Saginaw's pretty stacked with Michael Misa on the team. They've made some trades, brought in Owen Beck, a bunch of other guys. So that's probably inflating his numbers a bit, same with just OHL being, a pretty high-scoring league this year. But still, watching him play, he's always, taking shots from the point. He knows how to get into the scoring areas. I saw him score a hat-trick on the Spits. It was like an 11-3 game or something. You guys can see here, looking at his scouting rankings, anywhere from as high as 4 to as low as 17. So I think getting him at 9 is pretty reasonable. And I think, too, when you look at the Seattle Kraken, they could definitely use some like up-and-coming young defensemen. I feel like when you look at the forward group, they already got that 1-2 down the middle of Matty Beniers and Shane Wright. Of course, I'm talking about the future. Wingers, a lot easier to come by than defensemen, especially like Parekh, who can play on your top power play. I think he's just kind of the perfect fit for Seattle. In terms of best player available, it might be him, it might be another guy, but he's like right around there. So if it's close to somebody else and he is kind of exactly what you need, I think you go for him. And again, I think this will honestly be just a great pick for Seattle Kraken, and I think they're getting good value at this spot. And now next year, guys, number 10, we got the Calgary Flames. I'm not gonna lie, this one was tough. There was a couple different guys I was trying to decide between, but in the end, I feel like they probably take Tidge Iginla. I'm not sure if the Flames front office can go up there and like resist taking the son of Drum Iginla, probably the most famous Calgary Flame ever. Maybe him, maybe Lanny McDonald, Mika Kiprusoff, Joe Nieuwendyk. I don't know, but Iginla, in my mind, is number 1, and the fact his son's available, this is a round where he's going to go probably a little bit early. I think most people are having him go in like that 13 to 16 spot. If the Flames get up there a couple picks early, I feel like they probably still take him. Has had a great season so far with the Kelowna Rockets, 55 points in 40 games. You guys see he's really stepped it up from his rookie season, having only 18 and 48 with Seattle. Again, though, Seattle was stacked, so I think he probably wasn't really getting the ice time, which is why he actually ended up getting traded there. Point per game on the under 17 Canadian team. Again, like you look at his rankings here, anywhere from as high as 13 to as low as 31. Most people, though, have him like in that teen spot. So I do think he's a guy. Is Calgary going to be able to go up there and pass on him? Maybe they will, but I do think it would just be, you know, the perfect spot for him, obviously. And I think the Flames definitely going to have some bias and might end up taking him if he's available, you know, in a reasonable spot. I feel like if they're picking any higher than, say, 8, they probably don't do this. It's too much of a reach, but anywhere from like, you know, 8 to 16, if he's available, I think they will take him. Now, next year, guys, number 11, we have the St. Louis Blues. I think personally for them, they look at their team, they've got a lot of good young forwards already on the squad with, you know, Robert Thomas, Jordan Kyrou, but also coming up in Zach Benson, Zach Dean. They just drafted Dvorsky last season. I think they go defense here, and I think they take Adam Jaracek. Probably next best defenseman available, again, depending on your ranks. You look at the rankings right here. He's anywhere from 8 to 19, so I think getting him at 11 is very good value. Obviously, his brother just got drafted top 5 by the Blue Jackets a couple seasons ago. He looks to be not quite as, you know, highly touted a prospect, but still very good in his own right. He's got 19 games played right now in the Men's Czech League, only 1 point, but again, 17, not really getting the minutes. It's really tough to judge him on just that. Everything like that's been said about him is he's supposed to be like, you know, a solid defenseman. I think St. Louis really needs that. And you look at their prospect pool, like they just have no great defensemen. Jaracek's the next best one available. I think this is kind of like an easy pick for them. Maybe they pass on a slightly better forward, but I think it's the pick that they probably do make. And now next year, guys, at number 12, we get the Nashville Predators probably sprinting up to the podium to take Berkeley Catton. I think he's a guy who might honestly slip a little bit in the draft, just based on kind of the other team's needs, drafting around where he's supposed to go. He was the guy I think the Flames could take instead of Tidge Iginla, but like if Iginla's there, again, I think, you know, hard time passing on him. Nashville, though, gets a great player, Berkeley Catton, having very solid numbers in the WHL. I look at his rankings, anywhere from as high as 4 to as low as 13. So again, getting him at 12, I think, is a pretty big steal there for the Nashville Predators, almost getting him at his lowest ranking. This year's had a really solid season playing for the Spokane Chiefs, 67 points in 41 games. Even last year as a 16-year-old, he had 55 and 63, almost a point per game. 16-year-olds, honestly, so impressive. He was minus 36, but I mean, who really cares about that? When you're rookie in the WHL, he still put up tons of points. On the under 18s, he had 4.7 games. Under 17s, he was the captain of. He had 12 and 7. Klinsky Cup, he was also a captain at 10 points in 5 games. I feel like, you know, NHL teams will probably like that bit of leadership there. So I definitely could see him going higher in the draft, just the way my mock worked out. He ended up slipping. Now, in terms of Nashville picking him, I think they definitely would love to have him in that future top 6. And now next year, guys, we have the San Jose Sharks making their second pick in the top half of this draft. At number 13, I have them taking Zeev Abouillem. I think they already got Eiserman at number 2, who's a scoring winger. We're not trying to add a defenseman here to really round out your first-round picks. You guys can see he's not the biggest defenseman at 6 foot, but he's a very solid, you know, all-around D-man. Good offensive game, solid defensively. I look at his rankings, anywhere from as high as 5 to as low as 22. And you can see here he's already playing for the University of Denver. Currently has 32 points, 22 games. Averaging over a point per game as a defenseman. Very impressive your freshman year in college. Again, you look at the San Jose Sharks. I think after trading away Carlson, they kind of really need that offensive defenseman of the future. Could be Bouillem for them. Again, not the biggest guy, but, you know, he's going to provide that offense. And I think, you know, between him, Eiserman, Smith, Eklund, maybe this is actually the start of like a good young core for the Sharks. And now next you guys at number 14, you have the New York Islanders taking my guy, Liam Greentree. If you guys don't know, he plays for the Winter Spitfires. We actually just named him captain. I think he could honestly be the perfect pick for the Islanders. He's 6'2", so he's got pretty good size as a scoring winger. His ranks here anywhere from as high as 13 to as low as 28. Most people, though, have him in the teens. Obviously, I've watched him play a bunch between last year and this season. Last year looked pretty good, 45 points, 61 games. He actually had an injury end of the year. This season, again, the Spitfires just named him captain after the deadline. He's got 57 points, 39 games. We're not really good at all this year. He's our best player by far as a 17-year-old. Just a great goal scorer. I think, too, the fact, last year he played with Maggio, who had over 100 points, led the OHL in scoring. The Islanders already drafted him. Maybe they could actually be a future duo. But even if that's not the case, I think Greentree is one of the better, scorers in this draft. You look what the Islanders need. I think they need scorers. So Greentree, I think, fits the bill, has good size. Honestly, great pick here, I think, for the Islanders. And now number 15 here, guys, are the Chicago Blackhawks, making their second pick in the top half of this draft. And just like the San Jose Sharks, I think they use a similar strategy. And after taking Celebrini number 1, they go Yakimchuk at 15. I feel like at this point he's the best defenseman available. You can see there he's got good size. He's 6'3". His rankings there anywhere from 12 to 24. So getting him at 15 is, around where he should go. This season playing with the Calgary Hitmen, over a point per game. You can see last season he had 47 points, 67 games. Even the season before that he had 13. Now, he's kind of a weird one, as he's actually a 2005 birth date, but he's born September 29th, so just after the cutoff, because I think the draft is like August 31st or maybe like September 1st. They have to be 18 by. Obviously, he missed that cutoff last year, so definitely like a bit of an older prospect, but still very good numbers there. I think maybe the fact he is a little bit older is why he's trying to drop a bit, even though he's had great production. I think, again, Chicago already gets Celebrini. Looking for a defenseman around to the draft. Yakimchuk, probably the best one available at this spot. Should be an easy pick. And finally here, guys, at number 16, we have the New Jersey Devils. Good chance they actually aren't picking the top half of this draft if they can, continue to play well and get into the playoffs. But as I'm recording this video, they currently are the 16th pick, and I've got them taking Michael Brandstad Nygaard. Hopefully I said his name right. He's from Norway. I think this might make him like the highest ever Norwegian draft pick. I could be wrong on that. You guys look at him, 6'1", 200 pounds. He's solid. In terms of the rankings, anywhere from as high as 9 to as low as 27. So once you get into the mid-round, there's definitely going to be quite a bit of variance. Right now, he's currently playing the second Swedish men's league. He's got 12 points, 28 games. It's not too bad playing against men. Playing for Mora there on the under-20 team. He had 12 and 7, so obviously a lot better. World Juniors this year, he had 5 points, 5 games. Obviously, Norway's best player by far. I think, too, I looked into him, like a very good two-way player, well-rounded game. When you look at the Devils, I think they already have, those top scorers. They got Jack Hughes. They got Hischier. They got Jesper Bratt. They brought in Timo Meier. They have Holtz, who kind of like maybe the sniper of the future. Brandstad Nygaard, I think, could be the perfect kind of fit-all player for them. You can either play him in your top 6, or you could just be like an ultimate third liner and play PK for you, kind of do it all. I think that's the kind of player they're probably looking for. So I feel like he's the best player for the Devils at number 16, and that actually rounds out the top half of this draft. I'm just doing the top half of the draft for this first mock, so we'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on these picks. Let me know whether or not you agree with the pick, or you'd rather your team take someone else. We'd love to hear from you guys. But that's going to do it for this one. If you guys enjoyed the video, leave that thumbs up, don't subscribe yet. Hit the sub button down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have a nice day. Goodbye.